What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Got a hell of a video for you guys today. You know, I love the phrase, every accusation is a confession. And that has become an ethos, if you will, of the left. Because it seems like we find out, you know, a little while later, oh, they accused Donald Trump or Republicans of doing this thing. And then, oh, come to find out, they're doing that very thing. Or they'll accuse, you know, the Republicans of doing this, and it's something that they have been doing for years, for decades and decades. And it is getting to a point to where we can't distinguish anymore truth from lies when it comes to these people, because they tell so many lies, and they spin things in such a way it just blows your freaking mind every single day. I've got a clip also to show you guys, and we're going to get into this, but this is a very fascinating article. And look, I'm going to say it right off the jump. If you guys are Democrats or lefties, you're probably not going to like this video all that much. But I would beg you to listen to this with an open mind and pay attention. And then, you know, take this point for point and then go research these topics I'm fixing to discuss and see for yourself. Check this out, y'all. Al Gore likens Trump admin to Nazi Germany, trying to create their own version of reality. That is hilarious, right? The irony in that statement is utter hilarious. But needless to say, let's get in to see what they have to say. Former Vice President Al Gore is comparing Donald Trump's administration to Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party of the 1930s, an analogy that has become increasingly common during Trump's second presidency. That is probably the only true statement in this entire article, y'all. That's probably the only true paragraph, full-on paragraph. It has become increasingly common. A lot of people are doing it. And I really don't see the comparisons here, but, you know, who am I but just a guy in a room reading the news, right? The environmentalist Democrat argued at an event for San Francisco's Climate Week that Republicans are trying to create their own preferred version of reality by blaming immigrants for global issues, just like the ultra-nationalistic xenophobic aggressors of World War II. That's a lie. We're not blaming criminal aliens for all the problems of the freaking world. Or we're not blaming criminal aliens for any global issues, as a matter of fact, except, well, no, that's not even really a global issue, is the only thing you can blame immigrants for is, one, the actions that they take, and two, entering our country illegally, right? And those aren't really immigrants, right? So the term immigrants is being used interchangeably by the corporate press. And so that's a blatant lie. Now, we do blame criminal aliens for crime, the crime that they actually commit within the country, and we also blame them for coming across our border illegally. However, outside of that, who else do we blame for this? Democrats, for allowing all these people to come across the border. That's the main focus, right? We don't blame the criminal alien, right? You don't blame a moth for flying into a fire, do you? No, that's just what the moth does. Criminal aliens are going to cross your border illegally. You blame the people in charge of controlling said border. That's who we blame. We're not blaming the criminal aliens for anything, and we're definitely not blaming immigrants for anything at all, because immigration is good. It's a very good thing. We all know this. These people are insane, comparing the Trump administration to Nazi Germany. That's fascinating. That's a new one I've never heard before.
Scale and scope of the ongoing attacks on liberty are literally unprecedented. With that in mind, I want to note that before I use what is not a precedent, I understand very well why it is wrong to compare Adolf Hitler's Third Reich to any other movement. It was uniquely evil, full stop. I get it. But there are important lessons from the history of that emergent evil, and here is one that I regard as essential. In the immediate aftermath of World War II, a small group of philosophers who had escaped Hitler's murderous regime returned to Germany and performed a kind of moral autopsy on the Third Reich. The most famous of the so-called Frankfurt School of philosophers was a man named Jürgen Habermas, best known, I would say, but it was Habermas's mentor, Theodor Adorno, who wrote that the first step in that nation's descent into hell was, and I quote, the conversion of all questions of truth into questions of power. He described how the Nazis, and I quote again, attacked the very heart of the distinction between true and false.
So make sure you keep that video in mind as we're going forward. As a matter of fact, to the next paragraph. Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again," left many voters of color in 2016 concerned about what exactly his election would mean. Yeah, mostly milquetoast stuff. We didn't get a whole hell of a lot with Trump's first term, right? He recently deported a Maryland man without due process and is defying the Supreme Court by refusing to facilitate his return. What I find fascinating about this is that whole deported a Maryland man, that's not true. He's not a Maryland man, is he? No, he is not. He is an El Salvadorian national who was a criminal alien. It's funny. He's not defying the Supreme Court either, because in that ruling, they specifically said they cannot compel the administration to engage in foreign policy. They cannot force the Trump administration to go in and pull Abrego Garcia out. So they did not tell him that he had to go and get this man and bring him back. They said, help facilitate his return. That is contingent on the fact that El Salvador has to release custody of Abrego Garcia. They can't force them to release him from their custody. So they can't force him to go and get this man back. These people are creating their own reality by saying, oh, he's a Maryland man. Yeah, this is a hoax, as a matter of fact. All this Abrego Garcia nonsense, it's all a hoax. All of it, folks. All of it. The White House recently confirmed Trump is exploring how to deport U.S. citizens too. Once again, I take it back to that video.
Attacked the very heart of the distinction between true and false.
That is just blatantly not true. He's never said anything about deporting American citizens. Now, he has, off the cuff, mentioned taking some of the worst criminals, people on death row, and sending them to El Salvador. But that's also a joke, off the cuff. As a matter of fact, we know Trump does a whole hell of a lot of that. And you can kind of tell when Donald Trump is joking by simply thinking about that statement. Do you think that'll ever go over in the courts? Absolutely not. So that he's obviously joking. We're not going to send prisoners to El Salvador. What's the point? Think about this logically, folks. That's what these people don't do. It's either that or they're just evil for the purpose of being evil. Just to lie to everybody. To drum up some sort of nonsense. Some sort of crisis. Right? It's always a crisis when it comes to Donald Trump. These people are insane. And I can't believe they're actually making the statement, oh, they're creating their own version of reality. And then they proceed to create their own version of reality. We've already seen, by the way, how populist authoritarian leaders have used migrants as scapegoats and have fanned the fires of xenophobia to fuel their own rise of power, Gore said Monday. And power seeking is what this is all about. Our Constitution, written by our founders, is intended to protect us against a threat identical to Donald Trump. But what's funny about that, identical to Donald Trump, that would mean it's not Donald Trump. That's hilarious, using their own words against them. Fascinating that is, isn't it? These people are insane. I can't believe they have no shame about it either. They come out and they just lie. Just blatantly lie. Just spew nonsense out of their mouth. And stand there and wait for you to respond like what? What are these people doing? It blows my freaking mind. Gore, a longtime climate activist who lost the controversial 2000 election against former President George W. Bush, said Monday that Trump believes global warming is a hoax invented by the Chinese to destroy American manufacturing. Right? As if these people know what's in Trump's head. Sure, he's made, once again, off-the-cuff remarks joking around about this, but anybody that has an IQ above 2 could hear that and be like, hang on, that doesn't make any sense, Trump. Yeah, China didn't create climate change, by the way. That's American scientists came up with that. Chinese scientists didn't come up with that. As a matter of fact, that's being pushed by a lot of people. Now, the climate change agenda, yeah, that's a hoax outright, but climate change itself is absolutely not. It's not. It just isn't. And what do I mean by the climate change hoax? Well, that's a discussion for another video, folks. But I think you could kind of read between the lines there what I mean by hoax. The climate change agenda is a hoax. Climate change itself is absolutely not. I mean, we've got the data. We can prove it. As a matter of fact, Trump has blamed foreign nations for the death of U.S. factory jobs and imposed a 145% tariff on all Chinese imports earlier this month. Yeah, what's wrong with that statement, by the way? Yeah, as a matter of fact, China has undercut the United States by hiring slave labor and indentured servants, essentially, to work in these manufacturing facilities to make everything and undercut U.S. jobs. And as a matter of fact, that's what Trump is doing with all these tariffs. Yep, that is a statement of good. By the way, like, will it work? We have no idea. We just don't know. I don't think it will, for the most part, with China. I think it's going to go, this is going to take a while with China at least. Now, with all these other countries, we're seeing the signs that sure it's working. Yeah, they're talking negotiations, trade negotiations, and all kind of other stuff. That's moving along swimmingly. But China, yeah, they think they are big enough to go against the United States, and they might just be. We just don't know yet. Like I said, we have no idea if this is going to work out or not. But Donald Trump is doing everything he can to stop the extraction from our economy. It's insane, y'all. The Trump administration has also fought to deport foreign-born students who participated in protests against Israel's bombardment of Gaza, setting a dangerous precedent for the eradication of free speech and anti-war sentiment on college campuses. Like, how do you connect those two? You know, deporting, or I should say revoking, because he hasn't been deported yet, revoking the visa of a student who is a terrorist sympathizer. How do you get from that to eradicating free speech? I'm just saying, that's insane. These people are nuts, y'all. It was German philosopher
named Jürgen Habermas, best known, I would say, but it was Habermas's mentor, Theodor Adorno, who wrote that the first step in that nation's descent into hell was, and I quote, the conversion of all questions of truth into questions of power.
He described how the Nazis, and I quote again, attacked the very heart of the distinction between true and false. Fascinating that's exactly what this article has been doing. That's exactly what the corporate press has been doing, right? Donald Trump's not an angel. Sure, has he lied? Yes, absolutely. But for the most part, he speaks the truth. He does. A lot of people speak the truth. The corporate press, they manipulate the truth. That is what they do. And it's blatant. We could see it all the time. Just, once again, look at the Maryland man hoax. He's not a Maryland man. Because he's in the country illegally does not mean that he's a resident of Maryland. He's not a legal resident, we'll put it that way. So, therefore, he cannot be of Maryland. He cannot be a Maryland man. He is an El Salvadorian man who was slated for deportation, and he got deported on purpose. That whole nonsense about, oh, well, he was, it was an administrative error, right? Once again, we found out, hang on, that's a lie. That a Biden holdover lied to the courts in court and said, oh, that we made a mistake. All to strike a blow to the Trump administration. That guy got fired. It was not a mistake. The invocation of the Alien Enemies Act supersedes the stay order. So he got deported on purpose. Insane. Former President Barack Obama and ex-Secretary of State Hillary Clinton recently shared similar concerns. On Sunday, Trump threatened to prosecute news outlets that factually report that immigrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia was deported to El Salvador due to an administrative error. And there we go, folks. Once again, that's a lie right there, because he's not an immigrant. He's absolutely not an immigrant. He was a criminal alien. There is a difference, folks. A vast difference. Plus, once again, like I said, that was a lie. That whole administrative error nonsense was a lie from a Biden holdover. That is it. That's it to this entire story, by the way. But these people are insane. Think about that for a second. Like, they're talking about, how Donald Trump's administration is just creating its own reality. And then they write an article about it to let everybody know what Donald Trump is doing. And then they go on to lie and lie, manipulate, lie, manipulate over and over and over again. Like what we are witnessing with the corporate press these days. It has become so partisan. These people refuse to tell the truth, the whole truth, right? Journalism is supposed to be about unbiased facts, presenting reality to everybody who is concerned about reality, who wants to know what's going on in the world. But that's not what the corporate press does these days. What they do is they produce narratives. That's it. They'll give you some facts. Oh yeah, this guy was deported. Sure, but then they make up all this other ancillary nonsense to go along with it to make you think, oh, the Trump administration has done something wrong. And just think about that for a second. If you read the news, how come when it's corporate press outlets, how come it's always Republicans are the bad guys? It's always Republicans are bad. And it's never Democrats did a bad thing. Right? Unless it's something, of course, that's just egregious and they have to report on it as a bad thing. Right? Just look what they did with Joe Biden, for crying out loud. They pretended for his entire presidency, pretty much, that Joe Biden was fine. He's a dynamo in the background. Everything is okay. He's running for president again. And then they pretend when he comes out on stage and we figure out that he doesn't even know where the hell he's at. And yeah, he's not capable of being president. Then they act surprised and shocked to make you think that they had no freaking clue. That is the height of manipulation, folks. That is absolutely the height of manipulation. Anybody with a pair of eyes could see that Joe Biden was failing mentally, at least. Right? Sure. Say whatever you want about the guy. Good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. Right? You can't deny that fact of reality, right? And this is exactly what they do. Every accusation is a confession. So what does that tell you, right? Like, it's in the article itself, the lies, the manipulations. And it is insane that we're still on this Maryland man hoax when it's been debunked over and over and over again. All the evidence that he was an MS-13 gang member has come out, right? And it's not concrete proof. How do you concretely prove that somebody's in a gang when they're claiming that they're not? How do you do that? I don't know. Let's give a preponderance of evidence and say, well, here you go. You decide. Well, let's see. He was arrested with MS-13 gang members. He was wearing the affiliated clothing that goes along with that gang that they typically wear, put it that way. He's got tattoos that we saw are, pretty much equate to MS-13 tattooed on his fingers. Let's see. Then we have an informant who was specifically working undercover to go after MS-13 testify in court to a judge that this guy, Abrego Garcia, was an MS-13 gang member, a Chiqueto, or whatever, I think that's how you say it, which is I guess you could say, a pre-member or whatever. He's in the gang, but he's not a full-fledged, he's not fully vested yet because he hasn't committed a murder or whatever the ritual is for the gang or whatever. But, so you take all that evidence into account. Okay, sure, that's not 100% proof positive, right? We can all agree to that. But for me, that's a preponderance of evidence that shows that, yeah, we can pretty much say he's probably in a gang 2 judges determined that he was in a gang, that was enough evidence to say, okay, we're going to hold him. He's not going anywhere. And then he makes up this story about gang violence back in his home country. Oh, it's gang violence from a gang from Guatemala, as a matter of fact. Now, I wonder why that is, right? Now, sure, you could say that, oh, well, people are targeted by gangs all the time. Sure, you could say that, but what do other rival gangs, who do they also target? Other rival gangs, right? Like gangs target other gangs. And MS-13 and Bararo 18 just so happen to be rival gangs. I'm just saying, so there's your threat right there. Possibly, right? That's not concrete proof either. But it's just funny because, and then connecting all the dots like, oh, because they arrested or revoked the visa from this one guy who's a terrorist sympathizer, oh, all of a sudden free speech is going to go away. It is utter nonsense. Every accusation is a confession. Once again, all we got to do is look to Democrats and what Joe Biden was doing with silencing voices online on social media, pressuring the social media companies to shut people down, to ban people outright so they could not speak on a specific platform. That is far worse on the free speech front than anything Donald Trump has done. Sure, he's suing CBS 60 Minutes, which is my next video. Sure. But once again, that's because of an action taken by CBS to try to manipulate an interview with Kamala Harris. Just so happens to be his opponent in the last election. Trying to manipulate the election. That's what he believes. That's what he's suing for. I'm not saying that that's what they did. It does appear that they manipulated that 60 Minutes interview. Now, as to what reason, we have no idea. We just don't know. Trump thinks it's to influence the election. I have no idea. Maybe not though. Maybe they just cut it down for time. We just don't know on that one, right? It sure looks that way. That you could get away with saying they cut it for time, but why air 2 different answers? That's weird. It's just strange situation right there. But Trump is suing them. But all of this just makes no sense. And it blows my mind. Bet you knew that, huh? We're getting to the end of the video when I say it blows my mind. But it does. The level of hypocrisy, double standard, the lies, the manipulation, everything that the corporate press does to make Republicans look bad. They never do this with Democrats. Just think about that for a second. That should be your starting point. Why is the narrative always in a certain direction? It's always in a certain direction. Statistically, that's an impossibility, right? Because, whatever reality is going to go. Sometimes Republicans do a good thing. Sometimes Democrats do a good thing. And, sometimes Republicans do a bad thing. And sometimes Democrats do a bad thing. It's not always Democrats always good, Republicans always bad. Statistically impossible. I'm just saying. Just start from there and then work out. And you'll figure a lot of stuff out from there. That's what I did at least. Started from that point because I noticed, once again, it's always Democrats are doing the good things. They're the ones fighting for us. They're the ones standing up in the face of evil Republicans. That's how the corporate press lays everything out, if you will. It's how they marinate reality with whatever narrative they want to. But I think I've rambled on for long enough on this one. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. It blows my mind. Once again, said blows my mind. That was out of habit, actually. I didn't mean to say that. But y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. That would be greatly appreciated. Subscribe if you're new around here and you want to get, the truth with a bias. That's what I do. I point out manipulations of the media, give you the facts, because a lot of times they just omit the facts for narrative purposes, I guess. I don't know why. Because they could still spin stuff in certain directions and still give you all the facts. But, sometimes facts are damaging to your narrative, so you must omit. Get rid of it. Why not? It's just easier to eliminate the obstacle, right? instead of trying to hurdle it, trying to go around it or over it. But y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.